So without further delay, here's your Delphi instructor.
Hello and welcome to this 1-hour live cast on increasing car count and profits by building better customer relationships. I'm Dave Hobbs, instructor for Delphi Product and Service Solutions. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you very much spending this next hour with Delphi. Let's get started with talking about how we're going to increase car count and increase or better our customer relations. What we're going to cover this next hour is knowing what customers really want. That's going to really help build relations, making their visit to your shop a positive experience, turning price shoppers into lifetime customers, and then also educating your customers on preventive maintenance. We're going to use oil changes as an example. So let's get started in talking about what customers really want. Number one, quality service. And then also timely service. If you set a certain time the car is returned to them, you get it done on time. And then finally, not the cheapest price necessarily, but the best value, value-based service. Quality service boils down to starting out with knowing really what your job is as a service advisor, shop owner who deals with customers on a daily basis. Your job really is broken down into thirds. 1/3 hospitality, a third sales technique, which is not really that much rocket science, but actually the car repair itself is rocket science. So knowing how to explain rocket science, knowing the rocket science behind automotive service, there's your three or your triangle of things that you have to do on a daily basis. You get any one of those sides of that triangle lopsided and the whole thing is going to be offset. So let's talk about getting it fixed the first time as a perception of what customers want here. First off, customers don't like to see the MIL on. We know what MIL stands for, malfunction indicator light, the check engine light for emissions. Bottom line, whatever you call that light, they want it off for a long time. Now, in the real world, we understand the light can come on for dozens, even hundreds of different reasons. So let's just say we repair an O2 sensor. And now the light is off. And then the O2 sensor really was bad. It tested bad, it looked bad. We showed the customer, we put a new one in. But here, a month later, a week later, 3 days later, whatever, the MIL is back on again. And all they know is the light's on. I paid you to turn it off, now it's back on. You do some diagnostics and you find it's a bad catalytic converter. The monitor ran after the O2 sensor now was replaced, and now we can do that. So explaining things to your customer. Other examples, no starts. Maybe it didn't start because the battery was bad, battery was running down, but now we have a no start and it cranks but won't start. It's not a no crank, it's a no start but cranks. Customer just says it's just not starting. Second time in 2 months. And so those are the perceptions of customers. They just know the light's on again, it's not starting. They want things, whatever you fix, to stay that way for a long, long time. So there lends the source of frustration, one of many sources of frustration for customers that we have to address. Now, let's address why you went into business. If you are a shop owner, one of these 4 items is typically why you went into business. You wanted to come and go as you wished. Maybe you wanted to be your own boss or make a ton of money or do what you loved. If you've been a shop owner very long, you know you really can't come and go as you wish, not for a long time anyways, until that place can be on autopilot. And the same thing for being your own boss. You know the customer's the boss when it comes right down to it. And making a ton of money, that may not happen for quite a while when you start that business. You might actually long for the days when you work for somebody else, you made more money. But doing what you love, that's a route that you can still make sure you've got that element alive for you. And that's important. If you can convey that you're excited, you're enthusiastic about car repair, it'll come through and help you with sales. Because everybody has an opinion. Whatever your opinion is of why you started into the business, you're entitled to an opinion. And some shop owners think, well, that opinion, that's got to be my opinion because it's my place. Not so. It's not really your place. Technically, legally it is, but really the customers are running that place because they're your lifeblood. So let's talk about customer relations so that you can lower your frustration level and continue to focus on doing what you love. Customers, number one, you know this, they don't trust technicians. They don't trust mechanics. Here's an example from a survey. A person was quoted saying, I brought my car back for an alignment, and he gave me a list of other things that cost $1,300. My mechanic friend said I didn't need any of it. We've all been on one of those lists, right? We've maybe looked at a customer's list and been that mechanic friend that said that, or vice versa. In all earnest and all honesty, you made a list of things needed done and somebody just second-guessed that list. No wonder there's a lack of trust with customers and technicians. We don't all agree on what needs done. Now, customers sometimes are asked, would you want to know more about what's going on with your car? And they typically will say this quote here, yes, but I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the understanding of auto technology to really, get a fathom of what's going on as far as knowing more information. They really want options. They want to know, what are my options to do, A, B, or C? And they also finally want to know what would happen, what's the worst case scenario if I don't get this done within the next 6 months. So those are some of the things that customers have going on in their head. Now, technician frustration. We know that other technicians out there in the field, they're not sitting in a live cast. You never see them at live training classes because they just don't desire to better their career. So they become lesser and lesser competent as technology ramps up and ramps up. You know the techs I'm talking about. They're pretty dated, and therefore they're the last place in the world you want to even take your car. You're stranded on vacation, your car broke, you have no tools, you have no shop, you're at the mercy of some other tech, and you don't trust them yourself. So no wonder customers don't trust us. We don't even trust ourselves. Customers also don't know and have any understanding or compassion on how long it takes to do what we do, what we have to go through in order to get to a component. There's the skin we leave behind sometimes on a sharp bracket, the frustration of getting the wrong part sometimes over and over. How long it takes is a big frustration we wish they knew. And there is a way to let them know. There's a way we call communicating better. We're going to be talking about this the next hour. So what do you do? Well, part of the art form is reading your customer. Where is their apprehension? Is it in price? Is it in your ability, your knowledge, your competency? Or is it in the ability to get the car back to them? What's their biggest worry? Read them and ask them questions and try to solve that worry so that they know you're on their side, and that'll get them on your side. Now, one other frustration customers have, pricing. Not necessarily they want the lowest price, because anything you buy, you can always find something cheaper. And sometimes cheap can be expensive. We all know that. But 83% in this survey said that they feel overcharged by their shop on their car repairs. So therefore, they rate going to a repair shop right around going to the dentist and getting their teeth drilled and a bill. So drilled and billed is not exactly a fun thing, no matter how nice your dentist is. Well, customers rate that somewhere. In fact, lady customers rate a dentist visit actually higher than their experience with most repair shops. So we got to elevate that up because we're not drilling people's teeth and giving them a huge bill and causing pain. Hopefully we're taking pain away with quality auto repair. Now, consumers hate surprises. When it comes to prices, if they know what it's going to be and there's no surprise, typically you can handle that. It's when you think the bill's going to be $300 and it's $800. Those are surprises they really can't afford. In fact, taking the surprise element with more thorough diagnostics and more detailed estimations will actually go beyond getting it fixed right the first time and getting it back on time. That it can actually be a higher priority to a lot of customers, eliminating the surprise of the price. Lady customers, oftentimes price shoppers, men can do the same thing. Remember, price shoppers aren't necessarily looking for the lowest price. Yeah, there are some that just want the cheapest price on a water pump R&R. They know the water pump's leaking. Call around, who'll do it for the least amount of money. But oftentimes, in fact, more often than not, what I'm told by a lot of other shop owners, the customers are really shopping for attitude, good attitudes. So good attitudes don't have this in the back of their mind all the time. I'm going to fix that customer. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes I hear a lot of service advisors, shop owners tell me, man, sometimes it's just easier to fix the customer than it is to fix the car. Well, don't look at it with that frame of mind. The Customers aren't there to be fixed. They're there to get their vehicles fixed. And that's what you love to do, right? Fix vehicles. So how do we turn that around? Educate them, empower them, help them be on your side, you're on their side. It's a teamwork of communications, building relationship to get that whole, I don't have to fix my customers, just have to fix their cars. Case in point, here's a little mock scenario of two service advisors talking to the same customer about a price being shopped for over the phone. Hello, Central Auto Specialist, Dave speaking. How can I help you?
Hi, I have a short in my car and I'm wondering how much it would cost to have it fixed at your place.
Well, we can't quite quote a price over the phone without seeing the car first. Could you bring it by tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow I'm pretty tied up. Could you just tell me, is this a problem that's going to be like a big expensive fix or something quick and easy and not very expensive?
Well, like I said, we don't have a crystal ball. We haven't seen the car yet. If you can bring it by, if you can't bring it by tomorrow afternoon, maybe the day after. A lot of people say it's a short. It's not actually a short at all. It's something else. But we can take a look at it day after tomorrow. Can you put you down?
You know what? I'm going to have to think about this and talk to a friend. I'll just call back, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for calling. Yeah, price shopper.
Good morning. This is Central Auto Tech Specialist. I'm Pam. How may I help you?
Hi, I'm wondering if you guys can fix my car. It's got a short and how much it's going to cost.
Sure, I'll be glad to help you with that. First of all, let me get your first name and what kind of vehicle do you drive?
I'm Kate and I drive a 2010 Mercury Mariner.
Kate. You know, it just so happens that we have a Ford factory trained certified technician here who's also ASE certified, and I think we can get to your problem.
Okay.
First of all, let me ask you some symptoms that you've been having.
Symptoms? Well, it pretty much isn't starting. Or when it does, it's really hit or miss, and I've had to jump it a couple times. It just, I put the key in and it's kind of, cross your fingers, is it going to start or not?
You know, there's nothing more unsettling than an unreliable vehicle. Trust me, I work on vehicles myself, and you just turn the key and I understand what you're going through right now. Furthermore, there's a cost to it, and the way times are, it's really, really tough to pay the bills, so on and so forth. But we make it pretty easy here at Central Auto Tech Specialists. It's a $39.95 fee to check it out. That's the minimum shop charge. But your symptom could be something as simple as that fix. Now, going further, if there is a bigger issue, I'm going to talk to you first before doing any further repairs. It's going to be strictly up to you. We're going to explain it to you. You're going to be an informed car care consumer, and we want you to be comfortable because that's what it's all about, your driving comfort. And let me tell you, I know about bills too because all of us are in that situation. You have a bill here, you have a bill there, and the last thing you want to do is pay for a car bill when you could use it to go grocery shopping or go shoe shopping. I understand, but I feel that we have the technology here and the professional techs, and we can get you on the road pretty quick.
Okay, that sounds good. Do you guys have time for me to bring my car in today?
Yes, we do. We can look at it today. We close at 5 p.m.
Okay, then I'll be by in a few minutes.
Thank you, and take care.
All right, let's do a little critique of what went right and what went wrong with both of those service advisors. You may have recognized me as the first one in the dark shirt and Pam talking to the customer Kate in the second scene. Well, I'm rolling my eyes as soon as I hear the whole, can you tell me how much it's going to take to get, cost to get a short fixed? Wow. How many times have I heard that? How many times have you heard that question? And it just burns you out. And you do want to roll your eyes. Well, I want you to think about this. Can they see you rolling your eyes when they're on the phone? Yes. Now, literally no, but figuratively, yes. Anyone who's ever been through any kind of phone class, where phone customer service or whatever, where you're on the phone, you're learning the proper phone techniques, has heard this truism. People can tell by the tone, your spirit, however you want to put it, that you're smiling. So certainly if you're not smiling, you're frowning, you're rolling your eyes, that'll come across through the phone as well. And that just puts a little bit of a damper on it from there on out. I did ask for the visit. You might give me credit that I was persistent in asking for them to come by. Remember, the whole point of the phone is to bring people into your shop to deal with in person. Either that or to call them and tell them the vehicle's ready, or ask them for a question that you have on their car. But the initial phone call is about getting the person in. So at least I had that right. But the crystal ball comment, yeah, the second, well, how much will it cost? That was like, well, that's it. I'm going to use my sarcasm and talk about the lack of a crystal ball. Now, it was good. I used the short description. You know, sometimes it's a short, sometimes it's another electrical issue. That's fine to make those explanations. That's good. It keeps them on the phone a little bit. But then it didn't last long because I got off the wrong foot. Didn't even ask the name or the kind of vehicle or anything. I ended up hanging the phone up, grumbling. And that will be the preface for the next phone call. So what did Pam do correctly? Well, Pam immediately said, with the crazy, how much is it going to cost to get my short, my car fixed? She immediately said, sure, I can help you with that. Positive. Now, in the end, she actually does, because the customer does make arrangements to come in. She asked for the name and the vehicle. So that gets personal. She knows the lady's name is Kate now. And also she knows that we're working on Ford. And just by chance, bragging right time, we at this repair shop have a tech who's been trained at the Ford dealership, Ford factory training. So they are ready to fix the car. And now Kate on the other end is hearing this great information that's given her a little bit of reassurance and faith in the competency of this repair facility. She keeps talking, so it must not really be about price, right? And we go on with Pam conveying I can identify with you, I have compassion, I pay bills due, and so forth and so on. So it becomes less about the actual dollar amount and more about the attitude. We'll work with you. And finally, we throw them a little bit of a sample of a potential cost, a little initial checkout fee. Now, a little bit of a slippery slope here. You know that sometimes you rattle off a number, $39.95 as Pam did, for an initial checkout fee on, a minimum shop rate. But Pam knows that this is going to be a starting cranking issue. If the battery is running down because of a drain, a bad battery, bad alternator, we have an issue where jumper cables are needed. She indicated that, Kate did on the phone. So therefore, we're not going to be looking for necessarily a phantom check engine light or anything like that require several hours of diagnostics. Hopefully, we might actually be able to look into it within that first half hour, that $39.95. So it gives the customer a little bit of a hint that, okay, we can at least get you to first base with $40. And then finally, the customer feels empowered, feels confidence, feels empowered, makes the appointment, comes in the next day for that initial check. All right, so that's the price shopper. Turn them into a client. Clients keep coming back year after year to become relational customers, lifetime customers. You know the ones, if there was an emergency, somebody passed away in your family, God forbid, or vice versa, you would be at the funeral home for your customer would be at the funeral home for you. That's what life customers do. You have them now, you want more of them because they're not going to be how much and how soon after a little bit of time getting confidence from you. Let's talk about men as customers. How's that unique? Well, men have a bit of a pride issue, generally speaking, especially baby boomers, my age and up and so forth. They have the perception in their head that they at least should know a little bit about car repair, car problems, how to change a tire, how to change a spark plug, how to change oil. Those are things we were bred in. We're supposed to know. If we don't, we should. So therefore, as car repair becomes too technical, too much equipment, hard to even find things anymore on the vehicle, much less repair them and replace parts, then they send the vehicle to you. But they still want to hold on to that pride. So when you ask them, what's the car doing? It's loading up. What's the car doing? It needs a tune-up, and so forth. What they really need to tell you are symptoms like Kate gave Pam. But instead of beating them in senselessly and tearing their pride down, ask in a little different manner. But don't belittle them and say, you know what, loading up. What the heck does that mean? That's an old carburetor term, I remember, and vehicles don't get rich from loading up, flooding like they used to. Most of the time today, a fuel injection, it's a lean issue. You just kind of take the customer to task, not a good thing. Let them hold on to that pride. If they bring a vehicle in and it has a travesty of mechanical do-it-yourself, like these pads installed in backwards, basically let them save face. Let them, say, you know what? It can happen to the best of us. We can make mistakes, and that's why we're here to help you. You made a mistake here, we can fix it for you. So don't belittle them, don't laugh at it. I once had a plumber come into my house. I was on the road on a business trip, and my wife told me what happened. They looked under the sink, and they saw the plumbing job that I did, and I'm a tech, I'm not a plumber. So I did the best I could. I thought it worked all right, but my wife was not satisfied with some other plumbing, so she had them look at under the sink. They laughed. The guy went out and got his assistant, came in and looked at it, and they both pointed and laughed. Your husband did that? Belittled me in front of my wife. Guess who I will never consent to having work on my plumbing in my house? That company that sent the people that hurt my precious little pride. So keep that in mind. We're all in the same boat. Now, women customers oftentimes are a little different for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've often been targeted by predator shops. They've been the victims of ripoffs. Why? Remember that perception that men know about cars? Not necessarily women. I mean, they have those things they used to call powder puff mechanics courses. Why? Because the ladies needed to know more about cars. Guys assumed we did know. Not so much the same way anymore, sometimes the opposite. But because of that perception, that old cliche, women are often beat up on more by the predator shops. Therefore, they have become better consumers. So they're out there on the internet. They may not know what an EGR valve does. They can look at all the various internet research sites and determine who's getting beat up with customer dissatisfaction and who's having good customer satisfaction. Oftentimes the lady customers, before they even come in the door, they know more about our internet presence and success as far as the perception by people on the web than we know about our own shop. So keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that women make 70% of the decisions regarding the purchases of sales for service on vehicles. And therefore, because they're making most of the decisions, they're wanting to know exactly what they're getting for the money. They want that value given to them. They want to understand, what am I getting? If this is more money, why is it more money? How's that of value to me? And that's part of the sales technique. Another thing that has nothing to do with sales, but it has to do with the experience of your shop, is women not only want to be informed, they want to be comfortable. No lady wants a scary looking sink and lavatory and so forth in your restroom, nor do they want to come into a waiting area that looks helter-skelter, totally disorganized and cluttered. So cleanliness and organization are huge to lady customers. And if we turn that around, and sometimes just a few short hours, a little sprucing up, a little elbow grease as they used to call it, maybe a few pictures here and there, like the before and after example here. Here's a repair shop, has a very clean restroom, pictures on the wall of kids and the owner's family, gives more of a personal touch to the shop. Everything's clean in its place, and the customers are impressed, lady customers especially. I had a shop owner acquaintance that told me that he did a little bit of like a weekend of work, spent a few $100s, spruced up the bathroom, spruced up the waiting area. A new lady customer comes in, notices all this, and raves about how clean it is, how organized it is. She goes back very happy with the service. That's obviously in priority, but with the experience, she goes back and tells everybody where she works at a courthouse in that particular county. And within 6 months, 12 other new lady customers were now becoming regular preventive maintenance and repair customers of this shop. Where do those lady customers come from? The same courthouse. Word of mouth advertisement, you know, is the most effective that you can get. Now, also, in addition to making it a good, pleasant experience, we got to also look at what it is we're selling. You know, maybe you've transitioned from the service bay wrenching, and now you're up front giving advice and selling service. That's great. And hopefully you can get some people skills refined as a result of this hour and other courses you'll take, and is talking to other people who do it right. But also, if you're on the other side of the world, you've came from another service-related business, maybe you did customer support or whatever, you sold something else, and now you're in the automotive world, you need to gear up for knowing more about the technical side of vehicles. Do you have to be a rocket scientist to be able to explain rocket science? Not really. You think about the person who is a spokesperson for NASA. Be awesome if they were, aeronautical engineers, but oftentimes they're not. They're good people, folks, and they can communicate with the press, but they can understand what the rocket scientists told them, so they can convey that to the lay people like you and I that watch TV to see what NASA's doing. 50 electronic modules on most vehicles or more, 2.5 miles of wiring, 2,000 terminals, and $8,000 total content, software, wiring, connections, modules, $8,000 on the average $25,000 to $30,000 car. That's a huge investment in electronics and complexity. So knowing what you're dealing with and knowing some of the equipment your shop has, what it does, why it's better, is essential in helping you convey your competency as well as the value of what you're doing. So again, don't have to be a rocket scientist, don't have to be an A-level technician to explain what A-level technicians or rocket scientists, if you will, do in their pair world. Speaking of technical things, sometimes diagnosing can be very technical. Diagnostics is part of creating lists. How do you know what you're going to sell the customer until you do some inspections or some testing? Now, what I like to do is I like to have a priority list, whether you do numerals or you do letters, but have a hierarchy of what needs done first. Now, obviously, the first on the hierarchy list is what the customer asked for. So if they ask for fixing the drivability issue, that maybe it turns the check engine light on, it's a hesitation, for example. And also, I got this really horrible squealing noise when I turn on the AC or the heat. You better make sure you listen to all those things. Don't do the I thing, interrupt, but listen to the story and find out what they're wanting that becomes the highest priority. That's the A list. And we want to make sure we don't do the best job fixing that check engine light and, oh, I forgot the blower motor, because the blower motor whine may be the most important thing to them, way above that check engine light and hesitation. It may be the number one thing they're there. The B list, the second level, is things we determine that need to be done soon in our inspection, in our testing. So you notice that the tie rod's a little loose. It should be taken care of. Now, for example, that tie rod, if it's ready to fall off, you elevate that to the A list. And you basically may have to barter with them and say, listen, if you don't have money or time for everything on this A list, I would suggest let's do the most important for safety first, and then the other things. Maybe put up with that whine for a while, fix that check engine light. But you let them make the decision, but you help them by giving them your priority list as how you would do it for yourself, how you would do it for a loved one. So if it's an older customer, your mom or dad, or your grandparents. Customer your age, brother or sister, if they're younger, well, I would have my daughter or my son do if it was their car. And that personalizes it, and it makes them feel that you're trying to have their back like it was one of your own family. Now, when you look at a vehicle, you do an inspection, and you determine, yeah, it's got a check engine light. It's a P0171, 174. It's lean. What do? You could just say, well, we got to do some diagnostics on it, some diags. Never shorten terms, do acronyms. People don't understand. They don't even know what the OBD is half the time. So we have to do some testing. Testing is never done for free. Your doctor doesn't do it for free. The lab doesn't do it for free when they check your blood and so forth. Shops shouldn't do it for free. But some shops do a preliminary, plug in that generic OBD2 scanner, pull codes, they call it diagnostics, and it's free. So the word diagnostics has been devalued. So call it testing, but just don't say we want to do some tests, and we did some tests, and here's the bill. Your doctor sends you to the lab for blood work. When you come back to that doctor after that lab is done, he has a list. He has things on paper, or she has things on paper, and typically a good doctor will go through the list. You may not know what your this level or that level is supposed to be, but the doctor will explain these things to you. Some may go in one ear and out the other, but some of it will stay in your mind. You'll understand a few things, but the main thing is you'll understand first and foremost that doctor cares because they're explaining things. They're not just in and out in 30 seconds. A good doctor spends some time with you. That's what a good service advisor does. Spends some time and explains things. That's part of the value. So if you explain what a fuel system test is comprised of, and you have it written down on paper, and then when you actually get the sale for a fuel system test, what have you charged for it? And there's the results, and here's our findings, and this is why we say it should have a new fuel pump or this or that. You've got evidence to show them. Remember, you can explain it all, but unless you explain it in a compassionate way, and a thorough way, and a patient way, you're not going to convey to them that you care. People don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. That's an important thing to always take into consideration. Perception versus reality. When it comes to testing on that subject, there's the left. This is what the customers think. Here's the car, thermometer in its mouth, sick car, overheating. But no more guessing now because we have computers. You plug in the little thing and it reads out what's wrong with the car. That's what customers think. What the reality is, there's two techs. They're looking at schematics. They got wires. They got test equipment. They got a lot of things to plug in and a lot of research to do. So this is what we have to convey to customers, not in a glib way or sarcastic way, but in a compassionate way, what we are going through and what we're going to need to do. And it's not as simple as they might think. After all, it is rocket science. It's a modern car. Now, speaking of the rocket science, sometimes it gets a little too demystified when that parts store, that brother-in-law, whoever, has one of those OBD2 generic code readers. They plug that computer, so to speak, into that diagnostic connector, reads out the whole vehicle, right? We know it doesn't. So how do you convey that to the customer? Compare it to a zip code. Ask your customer, hey, if I give you my zip code, could you find my house? The customer will say, well, no, I need more than a zip code. That just gives me the area of the county where your house is. We'll say that the OBD2 generic code readers, the simple ones that they do a free check of, that's a zip code. What you have, your factory level OBD2 enhanced scan tool, like on the left, now they don't understand a word of what I just said, but you say it's like a GPS. It will zero in really close to the exact spot what's going on with your vehicle. And so that is a superior tool, and that's why we charge a little bit more money for it. You're getting a better value. So that equates it to something people can get their head around. Now, speaking of getting your head around things, there's no better way to do that with pictures. The old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture or even a video with technology that's readily available to everyone. Now, I think most service writers I come in contact with when I do these business classes around the country, they're all using this. But if you aren't, it's like, geez, it's kind of like, wow, why didn't I think of that? Take pictures, take videos, upload them either to the customer's email, or if they're into texting, do the text picture, but then follow it up with phone call, email, text message, whatever you found with the initial contact with that customer. When you got all their information, what is their preference to being contacted? There's nothing worse than calling and getting a voicemail all the time. And if you just would have texted them, bing, you would have got an answer. Or vice versa. You have texted them 8 times, they're not responding. Some people don't respond to text, they're not comfortable, familiar with it. But you call them on a phone, they'll pick it up. So pictures of a minor problem prevented, a piece of metal we dug out of your tire before it got embedded and made a hole in the tire and deflated it. Could have been a medium problem prevented. We have a variable cam phaser, variable camshaft timing, solenoid leaking oil, soon to take out that connection and cause that system to no longer be functional. Check engine line drivability will result. We had their back. We show them we found something in advance. This might not be a major problem prevented. It may already be a major problem right now, but a very thorough flush at the very least is in order. But this picture is not just going to basically be like your words saying, ma'am, sir, you need a coolant flush. It's going to be, wow, look at that. Anybody could look at that and say, that doesn't look good at all, and explain that should be nice and shiny and clean. You desperately need your cooling system flushed out and new coolant. So picture again, worth 1,000 words. Let's do another little mock scenario now that we've turned Kate from price shopper into a client, and hopefully we'll build a relationship with her and have her as a lifelong customer.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my Mariner.
Oh, hey, Kate. Yeah, all it was the battery, like we said, OEM battery. It's 5 years old, so you got a lot of life out of it. Typically 3 to 4 years is what we're seeing. Now, a mechanic noticed that, well, your oil's been sadly neglected. Now, we got a slot open at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. Would you like us to get that taken care of for you?
You know, I usually have a friend take care of, he's been really busy, so how much do you guys charge?
Well, it's $69.95 for a vehicle like yours. 2:30 work for you?
That sounds like a lot of money. I've seen prices, shows 20 bucks.
Well, when we do an LOF here, it's high quality oil. It's what the factory calls for, and we do a complete inspection bumper to bumper. That's why it's 70 bucks.
I'm sorry, LOF, and what's the difference in the oils?
Oh, lube oil filter. And the oils, a lot of differences. All the OEs have different oil specifications. You've got a lot of expensive high-tech gear. Variable cam timing, displacement on demand, all those things need the right oil. Your car needs 5.3 quarts of full synthetic 520. We need a WSS Ford spec that's C2C 930A. That's the right stuff.
You know, that just sounds like a lot. I'm going to have to think about this.
Well, hey, thank you for coming in and getting the battery changed here. But tell your hubby, stay on top of the oil change intervals. You neglect something like that, it can be very expensive for you in the long range.
Okay. Hi, I'm here to pick up my Mariner. I dropped it off. I think I had a short or something wrong with it.
Yes, how you doing, Kate? Your Mariner's all set to go. All it was the battery. Now this is pretty common on a vehicle that's 5 years old, like your 2010 Mercury Mariner. Not unusual. We checked all the other electrical components, your alternator, the charging system, everything else, starter, you name it. Nothing else was drawing on the battery. It was just age.
Okay.
So we replaced it with an original OEM part, and everything looks great. Now there is one thing that I'm sorry I neglected to call you, was you're due for your oil change. And this is very important because it's preventive maintenance. This is the lifeblood of your vehicle.
Yeah, usually a friend stays on top of that for me, but he's been really busy. So how much if I just had it done by you guys today?
Well, for us to do your preventive maintenance oil change, you know, we check over the brakes, we do a tire rotation, we put the proper oil, viscosity, and oil type. For an example, you require 520 oil, synthetic. We install that. It's nothing out of a bulk or anything like that. And we have a whole slew of other things, right down to the wiper blades and the brake lights. It's $74.
Yeah, you know what, that sounds good. Do you guys have time to do that today?
We sure do.
All right, let's go ahead and do that.
All right, thank you.
Well, that was a lot of information. Now, the character I played initially with Kate, conversation didn't last too long. Wasn't successful either. I didn't sell the oil change. What did I do wrong? Well, everything I said was factual. You ever heard this? It's not what you said, it's how you said it. Didn't say it very well. First off, badly neglected. Neglected is a pretty negative term. You might prefer to say overlooked, because we find out later it's actually Kate's friend who's been doing this, but they've been busy. And in spite of her saying it was Kate's friend, at the end, I kind of lectured her to lecture the hubby. Wait a minute, did I not have any kind of comprehension? She said, friend, I'm assuming she's married, she has a hubby that takes care of the oil, and go lecture him. Bad combination of things. And I abbreviated lube oil filter with LOF. And then when she asked me to explain a little bit of how I said it, it was almost like I should have just went ahead and said, duh, lube oil filter, dummy. So the little bit of a laugh in my voice, that was going to be picked up by a lot of people as some sarcasm. Might as well rolled my eyes there too. When she asked why it was more money, and I said, we'll use the good oil and so forth, and she asked a little bit more, you know, again, questioning the high price, even though it was $5 cheaper than what Pam was selling in the next clip, I went too far overboard. I used the WSS 930 yada yada. People aren't going to remember, they don't care. So let's talk about what Pam did correctly. She picked up on the name. The best, sweetest sound word you'll ever hear in any language is your own name. People love to be called by their name. It's so personal, other than, hey, you, sir, whatever. So she called Kate by her name, and she did a thorough explanation of everything's going to be all right with your Mariner, because all it was the battery, and this is the other things we checked, and they're fine. So now Kate went from, remember, she had a lot of apprehension about what was going wrong with her car, undependable. That's been spun around. Now Pam has her confident that a battery is really all it needed. All I said was a battery is all it needed, and I went on from there. Now, she also apologized, Pam did, that she didn't call Kate in advance before she got there to tell her that she observed that the oil needed changed. So she didn't use the word neglect or so forth. And then when confronted about a price, when she gave a price of $74, she came back with good down-to-earth terms about we use a proper oil, we don't use this other bulk oil, and then began to give a perception to Kate that there's a lot of services being done to check the vehicle, that it's not going to break down, it's going to stay running. Remember, that was her big thing. She's very apprehensive about the vehicle not being reliable. So, sold the oil change for more money with a little more down-to-earth, respectful, and as you might say, see the compassion also coming out again. So, not trying to fix customers, rather trying to fix cars. Now, speaking of fixing cars with preventive maintenance, the LOF, the lube oil filter, putting your best foot forward. Don't assume the customer knows anything. Now, obviously, you're going to have some customers you get to know, and you know their level. That they know a little bit, they know a medium amount, or they know a lot about cars. So when you're building up to that, you don't know the customer from Adam yet. You don't know if they even know why oil wears out. Don't assume that anything you say is too simple. There are a lot of people, and you know them, that have no clue that you need to check their oil, much less why it wears out. So explain to them that moisture from the air the engine breathes in gets down in the crankcase where the oil is. That moisture then condenses into liquid water. The water sitting there in the oil, just a little bit, mixes with combustion gases. As the air and fuel burns to propel that vehicle, those combustion gases also get down in that crankcase where the oil is. Combustion gases and water mix together and make acids, and the acid eats up the additives in your oil that make it motor oil, that make it the stuff that protects your engine and keeps it lasting a long time. Those kind of simple but thorough explanations initially are essential for today's motoring public that hasn't had a shop class or an Auto 101. They just get in and turn the key and go. Now, beyond that, if you get the opportunity and you can read the customer and their interests, some customers go, that's enough, all I need to know. I trust you. Great. But if you need more to convince them, again, you bring it down to a normal layperson's level. You use some bigger the terms you have to, like a doctor would, and then compare it to more down-to-earth things. You're talking about the oil ratings. It's more than just what's on the bottle in the circle that says API, American Petroleum Institute. It's things like ILSAC and ACEA. You simply say those are standards. ILSAC for North American and Asian cars for the most part, and ACEA, a European standard. And then tell them that you can even have, for example, two 5W30s from the same brand of oil, but they're different from one another. Yeah, brand X, 530, another brand X, 530. One is ACEA, one is ILSAC. One is this specification, one is that specification. How can that be? Well, explain to them a little bit about viscosity. Viscosity, what we see on the numbers, 5W30, is the resistance to flow of oil flowing through a tube, or any liquid flowing through a tube. And then you have something called, which is not discussed very much at all, but share it with your customers, absolute or dynamic viscosity. In other words, what the oil does when it's put into action. Now, let's talk about just pouring. On the left, we have honey. On the right, we have mayonnaise. Turn the bottles both upside down, the honey's going to flow, the mayonnaise is not. But now do this, take the spoon, stir the honey. Take a spoon, stir the mayonnaise. Which is going to be easier? Which is going to give you more resistance? The honey is going to be harder to stir. That's the dynamic viscosity. So the number is kinematic viscosity. The dynamic viscosity, that is what the oil does when it's put to work. That's why you can have a European spec oil, 530, not do a good job in an American car and vice versa. So that's why your oil changes are more, because you study and you provide the exact oil that engine and that manufacturer needs to go 100, 200,000 miles or more. Speaking of miles, let's talk about the number one myth in oil technology is oil needs changed every 3,000 miles, period. Controversial subject, right? Well, is it bad to change oil every 3,000 miles? No. Could it be a waste of money? Possibly. So take in consideration, oil companies and manufacturers of engines check the oil between 40, negative 40, and 120. That's pretty cold and pretty hot. Unless you're in the Southwest in the desert or you're in Alaska, you're probably not going to see sustained temperatures higher or lower than that. So it's not so much the temperature, it's what the engine's doing, what the driver's doing. Normal summer and winter, you're good. But that short commuter, what we call the soccer mom, you know this, right? The soccer mom is going to have more accumulation of water, moisture in the oil. They don't get their oil temperature up high enough to sustain the evaporative effect, getting rid of that moisture. The person that drives 15, 20 miles one way shuts it off, does the same thing going home over and over. They can go longer. Synthetic oils, the right type of oil, following the Lowlife Monitor, those are all factors in getting a longer oil change life that really is realistic and does not damage the engine. Taxi driving, police operation, doing towing of heavy loads, those are going to put you in the same category as a soccer mom that does the short driving, the severe versus normal. A lot of techs will tell me, oh yeah, most vehicles are severe. Well, it depends on where you live and how that customer uses that vehicle. The Lowlife Monitor can be a good, better, best scenario. It's good to explain that to the customer. The good is basically a reminder, so many thousand miles. Oftentimes you can tune them yourself through the driver information system, just like an oil change sticker. Time to change the oil. So many miles have clicked off, boom, time to change the oil. That could or could not be accurate. The next one, the better. A lot of American cars, General Motors for example, uses a combination of temperature, how long we've been at that temperature, and how far we've driven. Kind of weeding out the soccer mom or the overheating, towing situation to make that oil monitor percentage of oil life clock down quicker. But again, it's relying on having the right oil in the crankcase to begin with. It's amazing. It's shocking. When I do surveys, just informal surveys of training classes I do, how many shops, hold your hand up, have you had more than 4 oils? Nah, not that many hands to go up, a lot more. You should have a dozen, 15, even 20 different oils in your shop if you're doing Asian, domestic, and European vehicles. Finally, the best oil life monitor, high-end European cars, some diesels like the Ford, I think it's the 6.7, has a sensor actually in the oil pan that measures the oil breakdown. And those can be trusted. What that says is typically what the oil is really doing. Now, any of these computerized oil life monitors, the better and the best, are relying upon accurate software in addition to having the right oil in the crankcase. So keep in mind, you may need to do some research on your customers' calibration updates for a BCM, for example, to see if their software needs updated to make that oil life monitor more accurate. Now, we'll give you guys some questions, and then we'll open it up to questions posed to me from you. Number 1, let's start out with our first question. When it comes to cost, the majority of consumers would prefer to A, get the lowest price for the repair possible, B, know the exact amount before repairs begin, C, be kept informed of repair estimate increases, or D, be able to save 10%.
All right, Dave, our numbers are in. We've actually got 75% saying C with 25 saying D.
C Charlie and D Delta. All right, interesting, because the best answer, in my informed opinion, is know the exact amount before repairs begin. Easier said than done, but in our surveys, we're seeing this. They don't like surprises. Now, obviously, C Charlie is a good answer because people do want to be kept up to date if repair does go beyond the estimate. But preferably, we'd like to know an accurate estimate up front. Some do like the latest, the lowest price. Some do want to save, but the majority just don't want to be shocked when they get that bill. They want the exact amount before we begin. Number 2, responding to price shoppers who call. Advisor A just says, can't give phone estimates, period. Advisor B says, provide price ranges. Who's right? A, B, both advisors, or neither one of them?
All right, Dave, our numbers are coming in. We've got 20% on A, 20% on B, and the other 60 say D.
I agree with the 60% for sure. Neither advisor, if you're so short as you just simply say, can't get phone estimates, that's cutting yourself short of making a sale. We keep them on the phone a little longer, as Pam did, explaining what we do, the benefits of our shop. If they'll just keep listening, oftentimes we can turn that price shopper into a visitor. And then once they see our operation and our attitudes in person, oftentimes they'll say, you know what, I trust you. Let's do a little bit of testing. I can afford that right now. And then we'll go from there. So it's building that relationship, that bridge initially. So that kind of goes against what A says. And B, price ranges, the human nature, and I know Pam in that little skit, did give a price of $39.95 for an initial minimum shop charge for some testing of the charging system, because she knew probably we're going in that direction. And sometimes, yeah, I find dirty battery cables or whatever, and for that minimum shop charge, I can fix the car. And that's a little bit on the stepping out on the edge, but definitely giving them a high and a low. Consumer common nature is, I have selective hearing. I don't hear the high. I just heard the low, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire as a service advisor, shop owner, to fix my car for $100. So that's definitely not right. So D is correct answer. Question number 3. When selling a lengthy ABC list, service list to customers, that's our priorities of things that need done now, should be done soon, and in the future to keep your car going for long life, the C list, okay? When you're selling that kind of list, it's usually best to do what? Say the vehicle will be unreliable without all those services, A. B, tell them they can pick and choose the items to be completed. Or C, advise the customer how you'd prioritize services.
All right, Dave, we've got a even 25 saying B, and it's the other 75 saying C.
Yeah, definitely C, Charlie, is the way to go. You can let them have choices of what they'd want done, but remember, their choices and your choices are different. Now, obviously, they're paying the bill, so they're in the driver's seat. However, they came to you for advice. That's why you're an advisor, service advisor. You're the person with the information. You're the subject matter expert. So they're looking to you for what you would do. What would you do for a loved one? What would you do if it was your car? And that gives you the ability to help them make an informed decision. They still got the final say, but you're giving them a little bit of information to empower them of this. This is an informed car guy or gal I'm talking with at this repair shop, and this is what they would do. We've built that bridge of relationship of trust to this point. I'm going to go with that. That's what it really boils down to. Question number 4. When discussing oil changes intervals, it's best to advise customers to A, to have their oil changed every 3,000 miles. B, advise them of factors like driving habits. Or C, advise them that modern synthetic oils can go 5,000 miles.
All right, Dave, all our numbers are in, and we are looking at 13% say A, 75 say B, and the other 13 say C.
It's interesting. That's a little bit of a split, but the majority have it right. Driving habits, those are the big factors. Having the right motor oil, the right specification, not just a 530 of a good name brand, but the right 530, for example, goes a long ways, along with those driving habits. Are we in severe use mode, or are we in normal service mode? The 3,000 mile folks, hey, you can't go wrong as far as breaking an engine if you change the oil a little bit more often than you need to. And synthetic oils can go 5,000, even more. Some manufacturers will say that you can even run with non-severe service 10,000 miles or more. But these are exceptions, and these can often be offset by those driving habits and the exact oil not being chosen that should be in the vehicle. So always, always trump everything else with driving habits. We the soccer mom, we the cop, or the farmer pulling the heavy trailer, or are we a normal commuter warrior going 20 miles each way to work and not really abusing the vehicle in any way. So definitely be the correct answer. Here's number 5, our last question, Christian. When attempting to make a safe diagnostic or sale, to make a sale for diagnostic time for an emissions problem, it's the most important to first advise your customer of what? A, of testing procedures needed and to show test forms. B, that you guarantee your work 12 and 12, 12,000 miles, 12 months, 12,000 miles. Or C, that you've got the best diag man in town.
All right, Dave, our numbers are in. Here we go. We've got 71% saying A, and another split, 14% on B and 14% on C.
Well, B and C are important, that's for sure. Talking about your warranty, if you got a good one, that's bragging rights, and that's a customer feature, that's good value. Whether it's 12 and 12, 12,000 miles, 12 months, 24,000 miles, 24 months, or maybe you have this innovation of some shops I've been hearing lately, 24 months or 24,000 miles, whichever comes last. It is a really good value. And if you use quality parts and do good service, good workmanship, oftentimes you can do that. You can afford to do the whichever comes last. So we know warranty is important. Also, having the best diagnostic person at the helm, diagnosing the vehicle, super important. But what customers really want to hear is they want to know, what do I need to have tested? What is it? Tell me, show me. And that involves giving it to them, black and white. These are the services we needed, the things we need to test in your vehicle, and this is the outcome. Just like going to the doctor and getting lab work done, much the same way. So the correct answer, of course, is A. Most of you got that one right. And that's our last question, Christian. And now it's time for, if you have any questions from the web, let's hear them.
Yes, sir. Here we go. I've got a question here. It says, how do you handle a customer who has already had their car diagnosed at a different shop and is calling you to see if you can repair it cheaper?
Well, first off, don't laugh like I just did in their face, but consider this. Unless you know that shop well, I mean, you would take your vehicle to that shop if you hurt your hand or something you couldn't wrench for a while. I mean, we have those cases, those colleagues that we would trust with our vehicles. You're really at their word for it. So unless you have documentation and a trust relationship with their shop, I wouldn't even consider their diagnostic first off. I would want to do my own. Secondly, compare it to another world. I mean, that's getting it out of the whole tension of auto repair and all the frustrations, pulling it back to some area, and I'll use medicine again. Say you went to Surgeon A, who says, I've done some checking here, I think you need your gallbladder taken out. So you go to Surgeon B because you didn't like Surgeon A's price or the insurance they took. You go to Surgeon B and it says, hey, another doctor told me you need my gallbladder taken out. Will you do it next Tuesday, and what would you charge? Well, you know what's going to happen. That doctor's just going to say no and no. So basically, that doctor would say, now give me the test reports. Who's this other doctor? I can call them and talk to them. They might do the work if they could absolutely 100% verify it. But most of the time, they're going to, number one, at the very least, want to examine you. And number two, they're going to run their own tests. So you do the same thing because you have to stand behind your work, and you really can't stand behind somebody else's diagnostic work, not when you're playing with something of any kind of expense. So that's the answer I'd give.
All right, Dave, here we've got a question just come in. It says, how do you deal with the ever since or since you customer that says, well, you just worked on it, it must be under warranty, even though it's a completely unrelated failure?
That customer, I know who you're talking about. Everett sent you. Ever since you replaced my O2 sensor, now I've got something else going wrong. Or better, I love this one. You replaced my fuel pump. It wouldn't start. Now I got to check engine light on. Well, you know what? Doesn't sound possible. I mean, you made sure your tech plugged in the fuel vapor pressure sensor. What else could it be? You dropped the tank down, put a new pump in. It wasn't running. No pressure. You did everything right. Everything's plugged back in. Check engine light's unrelated. Initially, the tendency would be, human nature, would be on the defensive. Defend your technicians. They're good. They could have made a mistake. We all make mistakes. So you might say, that's totally unrelated, sir. You know, Most good shop owners and service writers, service advisors I know will say, bring the vehicle in, sir, ma'am, and we'll look at it. Be enthusiastic about it. Don't be on the defensive. Say, we'd love to look at it. If we did anything, even remotely wrong, we'll fix it, and we'll fix it quick, and we'll fix it for free. And we apologize if that's the issue. If it's something unrelated, we'll let you know what we're onto, what a preliminary diagnostics will cost, or what the service, the repair will cost, and we'll give you exactly what it's going to take to get this thing going again, and we'll fix it, promptly for you. So that's what you're doing, giving the customer the benefit of the doubt. Now, when it comes to that scenario, that fuel pump, now think about this. If you're not a technician, turn service advisor, shop owner, you've worked your way up through the ranks, turn service advisor, or talk to your own customers, you might know this already, but if you move from some other vocation into doing service advising, you may not know this, but when you replace a fuel pump, oftentimes it has the float arm and the sending unit assembly, and now a broken fuel gauge, which you were not informed of when the vehicle came in, either because they forgot to tell you or they had the perception that the more they tell you, the more it will cost and the longer it'll take to get the vehicle back. And we know this, the opposite's true, right? The more we know, the quicker we can fix it, and sometimes the cheaper it'll cost. But they didn't tell you about the fuel gauge not working. We didn't notice it, so we put a new sending unit in along with that new fuel pump. Now it drives down the road for a few days or weeks, and the EVAP monitor would never run because that fuel gauge was not working. Now the EVAP monitor runs, and it's got some hose off somewhere, loose gas cap, whatever. And now we have another problem that you were remotely related to. You didn't cause it, but you have to give that education of this example I just went through to that customer related to them, and hopefully they get enough trust in you, they'll believe the story, and you can take care of the next problem they have and charge them for it. Because after all, you didn't break the EVAP system, you just replaced a fuel pump. But unfortunately, everything works together. It's all hooked together. System interaction is more important than ever, knowing how all the systems interact. But that's a very good question, a very common frustration.
Thank you, Dave. We got another question here. It says, how would you approach a customer on an electrical diagnostic that may or may not be under warranty that would cost a lot to repair?
All right, so an expensive electrical problem may or may not be under warranty. Now that's the may or the may not is a big important factor here. But I would approach it with some of those statistics that I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, and that is the $8,000, and that's not replacement costs. Oh my goodness, if you went out and bought all the software, wiring, connections, modules, retail, and installed them, it'd probably be double what the car's worth. But I mean what the OEM car maker pays suppliers like Delphi and others to make the wiring harnesses and the electronic components and modules that go to the assembly plant when the car is manufactured. $8,000, like a third of the car or a fourth of the car's value. So we give them those statistics and say, your electrical system, it's the heart, the lung, and the blood of your car. It's what your car really operates on. It's becoming more electrical almost than mechanical. In fact, many things repaired today aren't even repaired with mechanical part replacements. They're repaired with software updates to a computer. So I would say, if it's expensive, it's worth it because your car is so electrical. If it's not expensive, we'll fix that too, but we can discern what it is, what it needs, and we'll go from there. If it's under warranty, we'll make sure we get enough diagnostics and testing done to where we can assist you with some information to go to your dealer. If it's out of warranty, we'll take care of that as well.
Thank you, Dave, for that answer as well. I've got a question here. There seems to be a trend of people purchasing replacement parts, then bringing them to shops to have them installed. These people have a hard time understanding why we charge the amount we do to install it. How do you deal with these situations?
Well, first off, you know why they're doing it, because people have become internet search savvy. They know how to find different businesses that sell sometimes good name brand parts, sometimes fly-by-night parts, but they sell it at basically wholesale cost, what we would pay for the part from our suppliers, maybe even less sometimes for the internet, and they know that's what the part's worth. That's their perception anyways. That's what part X is worth, this A, whatever number of dollars. And so they get those numbers, and then they know we're going to charge, let's say an alternator, we're going to charge, $185 for that alternator. They could have bought it for $125. So we're ripping them off, plus we're charging them labor. I don't have a problem, and most shop owners and service techs and advisors I know are kind of siding on the side as well. We don't have a problem being honest. And the honest answer is our business model of how we pay our bills, the insurance, the upkeep of the building, the employees' insurance, their paychecks, equipment improvement and so forth, staying up on training, it all boils down to two profit centers: labor and parts markup. Everyone marks parts up. If you buy a roofing job, I can guarantee you the labor factor, if they actually itemize their roofing bill, the labor factor would be so much, and the rest is the shingles and the tar paper and so forth. You go to the big box store, the home improvement store, buy the tar paper and the shingles yourself, exact same stuff sometimes, and you'll spend a little bit less for it, but you're paying for that warranty. Is that store that sells lumber and stuff going to come out and put new shingles on your roof? If it leaks, no, you're going to have to do it yourself. They may replace those shingles, but you're going to do the labor. The roofing company, however, if they have a 25-year roof they put on your house and it leaks, they're going to put it on for free. Same thing with your parts. We get paid for parts and labor just like the roofer. And we stand behind whatever warranty our warranty is. And if part goes bad, we'll take that up with our supplier. We get to choose. When you don't bring your own parts in and you let us choose, we get to choose the best supplier. We get to choose name brand parts like Delphi, which we know from reputation experience, we're going to stand behind it. If it has a problem, our supplier takes care of it. We do the warranty. We do the part replacement for free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you brought your own part in, a lot of shop owners won't even entertain the idea of putting them on. Others will mark the bill up for more labor and say you're on your own if it goes bad. Warranty is on you. But however you make your answer of how you respond, be honest up front with what goes on. What you don't want to do is use an analogy. And I know I've been big on analogies this evening, but this analogy is a negative one. And that's where you say, hey, you wouldn't buy a steak at the grocery store and take it to the restaurant and ask them to cook it for you, would you? Now that's accurate. That really nails it, but it might be a little bit too close to home. And another way of basically accusing your customer of being a cheapskate. We don't want to accuse the customer of being a cheapskate. We just want to help the customer make informed decisions. Remember, you don't fix customers, we fix cars.
Thank you, Dave. We've got another question here. When we quote an estimate, we tell customers the cost of the parts. What do you do when a customer shows you that they can find the part much cheaper online?
Yeah, goes right back to what we were talking about by bringing your own parts in. People, they don't want to bring their own parts in because, you know, you're going to use that crappy brand X part and the customer knows a better part, a really good brand name. Typically, they're doing it to save money. So when the customer shows you that they can find that part cheaper, then explain to them your relationship with your supplier is like, it's almost sacred. It's like their relationship with you. If they got a good working relationship with you, they're bringing their car to you, they're trusting you on, you know, a frequent basis with the second most valuable thing that they own, their automobile. And they're trusting sometimes you with their life, with the safety systems in the vehicle, the airbags, the stability control, the brakes. That relationship is broke when they come in and try to be your supplier, or to tell you what you should be paying for something, or to tell you, again, back to the business model, you shouldn't be making money on parts markups. You should just be making money on labor. Again, tell the roofer that. It doesn't fly. So respectfully, tell them this is how the businesses all work. You know, even those discount department stores buy things and they mark them up. That's part of the business world. So respectfully, just educate them on the business and hopefully they won't be a cheapskate.
Thank you, Dave. That's all the time we have for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in to this Delphi training series with Dave Hobbs, powered by AVI. Be sure to stay tuned for our next chapter in the Delphi training series on August 12th. Thank you, and have a good night.